Are there any on Zoom? Okay. What? It's the Outdoor Garden Grounds Workday. And we meet at Cuff. It's Saturday, July 25th from 8 to 11 a.m. Bring tools, gloves, and meet at Cuff. The sign-up sheet is in the Commons. Put your phone number so we can communicate if it needs to be rescheduled due to weather. The other announcement is there are 2 boxes of sugar-free Outshine popsicles in the fridge. Please take some home. They were bought by accident. And Miriam's here. There you go. Thank you. Wanting to list a list of welcome dates for Reverend Karen. The first service that she will officiate is August 2nd, and there will be a reception that follows right afterwards. There will be listening circles with Reverend Karen August 16th and September 6th after the service. Look for more. Are there any other announcements? Okay. The what? Next Sunday. Okay, Janet would like us to be aware that there will be an equal exchange sale next Sunday. Anything else? Okay. Now, let's please center ourselves with the music of our prelude. The song, entitled Bread and Roses, refers to a strike, which will be the topic of our first reading today.
As we
Thank you, choir. Welcome to the Carbondale Unitarian Fellowship, located on the traditional lands of the first people of present-day Southern Illinois. The fellowship is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, sharing the good news of Unitarian Universalism with folks throughout the region. Our good news is a message of love, freedom, reason, respect, and justice as the basis for religious community. I'm Debbie Blomer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of the Sunday services team and the choir, and this morning I'll be serving as your Sunday services facilitator. We are a congregation of open minds and hearts, all ages, all colors, all genders, all abilities, all kinds of wealth, and all kinds of love. Now, I invite those of us who are online to select gallery view so we can wave at each other, connecting our congregation over space. Sorry, I had to make sure my phone was silenced because I usually do it when I'm sitting out there. So now we move on, okay? Cuff is lay led for the next 2 weeks. Can I hear a hurrah? We await our new minister, Reverend Karen Van Vossen, who will join us next month. Please join us on Sunday mornings and our Wednesday evening Vespers on Zoom. For our chalice lighting today, I will share some quotes from Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a civil rights activist in the 1960s who fought tirelessly for social justice. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. When I liberate myself, I liberate others. If you don't speak out, ain't nobody gonna speak out. And finally, nobody's free until everybody's free. As the chalice is lit, let us honor and remember all those in the past and those today who bravely work for freedom and justice. Our chalice is lit. Now, with intention, Jen puts a pebble in our bowl of water, letting it ripple out beyond our knowing. All are invited to do the same here at the fellowship or at home to mark a joy, sorrow, or any other feeling you have during the musical parts of the service. The Bread and Roses strike. It was 1912 in Lawrence, Massachusetts, a city comprised of many textile mills, including the American Woolen Company, which had recorded a $3 million profit in 1911, a $3 million profit. In contrast, the average hourly wage for a male worker was 18 cents an hour and 14 cents an hour for women and children. Half of the workers were females between the ages of 14 and 18, with a large number of children working under the age of 14. Work in the mills was repetitive and dangerous, with about 1/3 of the workers not making it to their 25th birthday. Families lived in crowded, dark tenements and survived mostly on bread, molasses, and beans. Most people worked between 54 and 60 hours a week. Diseases now easily cured, diarrhea, measles, whooping cough, croup, killed many, mostly children. It was noted at the time that Lawrence was a powder keg, an explosive mix of 86,000 people whose daily grind gave them a visceral understanding of economics and power. The industrial workers of the world had started organizing in Lawrence with a small group of men. A new national law at the time went into effect on January 1st that limited mill workers' hours that they could work. 10 days later, when the workers were paid, they saw the mill owners had cut their pay accordingly. The keg finally exploded. Families were struggling to survive with their past pay and could not accept a cut. The first to walk out was a group of Polish women, quickly to be followed by over 20,000 other workers. The strikers were comprised of more than 51 different nationalities, and with the help of the industrial workers of the world, they organized. Most labor unions of the time incorrectly assumed that immigrants, women, and ethnically divided workers could not be organized. The two industrial workers of the world, male organizers present in the town, quickly assumed leadership of the strike. As the protest escalated, police and militia were called in. The police shooting into the crowds killed a woman marcher, and the authorities quickly arrested the union organizers for murder, hoping this would stop the strikers. However, the IWW brought a woman in to lead the strike, Elizabeth Gurley Flynn. She emboldened and encouraged the strikers with her passionate words. The strike was conducted in the middle of a brutal winter, and the women, men, and children were freezing and starving. They sang as they marched. The song most frequently sung was the song that the choir just sang, Bread and Roses. The strike is remembered as the Bread and Roses strike or the Singing strike. Elizabeth Gurley Flynn quickly organized efficient systems of relief committees, soup kitchens, food distribution centers, and volunteer doctors to provide medical care. The IWW raised funds on a nationwide basis to provide weekly benefits. Elizabeth garnered national attention to the lives and needs of the strikers and the horrific work conditions and lives they led. Families in New York and neighboring states took in children. Flynn was a courageous warrior throughout her entire life, standing up for free speech, workers' rights, women's rights, and believing in economic and social justice for all. She was fondly called the Rebel Girl. She was arrested many times and was imprisoned during the McCarthy era for 2 years when she was my age. She was one of the founders of the American Civil Liberties Union. She is buried in the socialist section of the Waldheim Cemetery in Chicago, besides Emma Goldman, the Haymarket Riot martyrs, and many other activists. I have had the great honor of going to that cemetery. Visiting the cemetery is like visiting a memorial, and the graves are educational, emotional, and very inspiring. The Bread and Roses strike lasted over 2 months, with workers employing increasingly bolder tactics, including halting production, marketing and picketing, and occasionally damaging equipment. Women played a central role in the strike, both as participants and leaders. The strike demonstrated remarkable inter-ethnic cooperation, with workers speaking more than a dozen different languages and maintaining solidarity despite cultural differences. The strike ended successfully after mill owners, facing public scrutiny and congressional hearings, agreed to raise wages and improve working conditions. The event became a watershed moment in American labor history, highlighting the power of organized immigrant labor and the importance of women in the labor movements. These are true American heroes. Now is the time in our service that we share of sorrows and joys in fellowship. We are asking folks to keep their sharing brief. And now Janet Harris, via Zoom, will tell us about the life of Emma Goldman.
Yeah, this is a biography, essentially. Emma Goldman, and I'm calling her the woman who refused to whisper. She was born a Jew in 1869 in the Russian Empire, where Jews were, of course, often discriminated against, in what is now Lithuania. Her father believed that girls needed very little education beyond baking bread and becoming good wives. But Emma disagreed. I'm sorry. At 16, she immigrated to the United States, hoping to find freedom and opportunity, and instead, as was pointed out by Debbie, she found long factory hours, unsafe conditions, and wages that barely paid the rent. The event that changed her life was the Haymarket Square affair in Chicago in 1886. After labor protests turned violent and several men were executed, Goldman became convinced that ordinary people needed more freedom and a stronger voice. She called herself an anarchist. She believed people could organize their communities voluntarily instead of living under oppressive governments or concentrations of power. And much of her career was spent explaining that anarchists were not simply people who liked to break windows. And for her, if anything, she liked to break assumptions. Goldman became one of the most famous lecturers in America. She spoke about workers' rights, women's equality, birth control, free speech, education, prisons, and war. Also, blind patriotism. She was an internationalist who believed that lines on a map did not define peoples, but that all peoples internationally should have justice. She insisted that free speech means protecting the ideas we dislike as well as those we agree with. During World War I, she opposed the military draft and was imprisoned for 2 years. This was not the first nor the last of her time in jail. But for her protests against World War, she was deported to Soviet Russia. There, she first hoped that the Russian Revolution, would build a freer society. Instead, she found under Bolshevik rule, she found censorship and authoritarianism. However, when she returned to the States 2 years later, unlike many figures who had supported the Russian Revolution, she changed her mind and criticized the new government just as fiercely as she had criticized the Tsarist one. One quotation which is often linked to Goldman is, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be a part of your revolution." They're not sure whether those were her exact words, but the sentiment fits her well. She believed a movement fighting for freedom should leave room for joy, music, friendship, and ordinary happiness. Although one might not be an anarchist, her ideals still are relevant today, and I think very aligned with the UU, no longer called principles, but anyway, with the UU philosophy. Emma Goldman wrote thousands of essays and 6 books, as well as engaging in many, many debates, some of which were published. If you want to learn more about this amazing, strong woman and her fight for justice for all, I'd suggest you start online. You can find something there. There might be some in the library even, some of her books. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Janet. It is Social Action Sunday, so now I would like to invite Elana Floyd-Kennett to tell us more about the Gaia House Interfaith Center.
Thank you, Debbie. Good morning, friends. I come to you with a thankful heart on behalf of the board at Gaia House Interfaith Center. The University Christian Ministries is over 80 years old, connected with SIU. And the building that is the home for the Gaia House Interfaith Center is around 64 years old now at this point. So at Gaia House, folks gather to worship, to meditate, to listen and help each other heal, and to move through difficult times. There are quite a few different religious traditions that currently rent space at Gaia House. There is the local Baha'i group has an informational time. The Quakers meet there. The Southern Illinois Pagan Alliance meets at Gaia House during the winter months for their high holy days of Samhain, Yule, and Emil. There are 2 different meditation groups, the Sunyata Center, and then also Great Wave Sangha meets during the week, and one on Saturday mornings. The Addis Community Services stores a lot of their foods uses that space to put together brown bag meals for at-risk children. The Southern Illinois West African Drum Ensemble practices there on Monday evenings. Let's see, I'm going through the week to get all these different groups. There is they've been with us almost a couple of years now, the Downstate Illinois Trans Organization, known as Ditto. They meet there, they do a lot of creative things together. They are social support for one another. They are mutual aid for one another. What's lovely about Gaia House, it is a green space on the Strip. At the southernmost end, we are bordered by the rail line to the east and Illinois Avenue on the west. And we also, the board takes care of the Labyrinth Peace Park and the Geodesic Dome. And one of my most favorite things that I've evolved into taking care of over the years is the pond, which now has approximately 100 3-inch goldfish. Some of them are black, some of them are, and recently I think a human being brought us a big, beautiful 10-inch, probably red-eared slider turtle. And boy, are they fast. So I never knew that I would fall in love with the goldfish so much, but I've really become very, very, very motherly with them and look after them. As with any building, there are always things to take care of. We all understand that here as we take care of this physical space. And the monies that keep the electricity going, the water, the roof, the solar panels, the electricity are all from people who rent the space there. We have no besides the monies from CUF, we have no other affiliation with any other religious traditions. Things are very stable financially for us. We are halfway through the replacement of the bridge that goes out to the south. The floorboards are being put together and will be replaced, which was a very, very big project. So hopefully by October that will be completed. So thank you again for your generous support, and Gaia House thanks you.
Thank you, Elana. In our fellowship, we share so many things: time, efforts, talents, spirit, and money. We share with this fellowship and for the needs of the fellowship, but we also share with our greater community beyond these walls. You may contribute to the fellowship or to our social action offering recipient for July, Gaia House Interfaith Center, which Elana just spoke about. Checks should be made payable to CUF, and you can also donate online via PayPal. The link is in the chat and in your order of service. Use the check memo area or the note area in PayPal if you wish to specify a contribution to Gaia House. Also, remember that your spare change makes a difference. All the coins collected during the offerings, thanks for the sound effects, are sent to the UUA Annual Program Fund, which provides important resources to UU congregations, including CUF. Please join me in our unison offering reading. Words are in your order of service and on the screen. Freely have we received of gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our fellowship and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Your contribution in all forms are gratefully received. Yes. This song is dedicated to all the people in the current administration under the 47th president.
Will be prisoners in the same old gilded cage.
Thank you, choir. Now I would like to invite Steve to come up and talk to us about Mother Jones.
Well, that last song certainly set the tone for talking about Mother Jones. And I'm not really too scared, so. As I was coming in, several people asked me, "Are you ready? You have what you need?" I said, "Well, we'll find out." And now is the time when we'll find out. Mary Harris was born in 1837 in rural County Cork, Ireland, into a poor rural Catholic family of tenant farmers. The Great Potato Famine swept Ireland, killing nearly 1 million people and causing 1 million more to flee to North America, including 10-year-old Mary and her family. It was a long boat ride. They settled in Toronto, Canada, where they faced hardship and discrimination like other immigrants. Mary managed to get some education, including attending teacher college and learning to be a dressmaker. She also had a certain wanderlust. So at the age of 21, Mary moved to the United States to take a teaching job in Michigan, where she taught for less than a year. Got tired of that, moved to Chicago, and became a dressmaker. She lasted at that for about a year, and in 1980, Mary moved to Memphis to resume teaching. 1980? No. Okay, right. So how did this teacher and dressmaker in her 40s become known as the most dangerous woman in America and the coal miner's angel, and the agitator and labor organizer we know as Mary Jones? Well, buckle up, it's quite a journey. In 1861, 1 year after she had moved to Memphis, she met and married a union activist and iron worker named George Jones. Together they had 4 kids, and one would think things were settling down. But in 1987, yellow fever swept through Memphis and killed her husband and 4 kids. Historical context, you have to remember that the Civil War was from 1961 to 1965. So these were, 1800s, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So after she lost her family, she moved back to Chicago and established herself as a dressmaker to the rich and high society women in Chicago. She became very successful. But in 1971, just a few years later, the Great Chicago Fire swept through, destroyed her shop, her home, and she lost everything. As she worked to rebuild her dressmaking business, she began attending meetings of a new labor organization known as the Knights of Labor. Their goal was to organize all workers, regardless of skill, age, race, into one big union. She began attending the meetings that they held and started organizing with them. In 1987, the railroad workers in Pennsylvania began a general strike, which spread throughout the country. Mary was sent to Pennsylvania by the Knights of Labor to help organize. And there she began her association with organizing coal miners. She convinced them to join the general strike. and that began her association with the United Mine Workers. They put her on as an organizer. And so she continued to lead strikes and protests in the 1990s with the mine workers, primarily in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And now Mary was a force of nature at this point. You have to think and realize she stood 5 foot tall. She still had her Irish brogue, which would, some say, get a bit thicker as she spoke. She was a fiery orator that was able to keep masses of workers enthralled with her speech. She often felt free to make fun of bosses and their government lackeys. She also wore old-style dresses, all in black, denoting her widow status. That persona evolved into her 1987 declaration at the age of 50 that all these miners are my boys and I am their Mother Jones. From that time forward, Mother Jones had no settled home, no home address. She just traveled. Her phrase was, "My address is like my shoes, it's wherever they are." During her time in the early days with the mine workers, their membership grew from 30,000, or from 10,000 to 300,000. She believed strongly that the only way the working class would achieve a better life and justice was through strong unions. Workers could not depend on the owners and their government lackeys to raise the plight of workers and their families unless they were organized and stood together. Her often quoted catchphrase was, "Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living." Now, bear in mind that during the time that she was organizing coal miners, the mine owners owned everything. They owned the houses the miners lived in. They paid them in company scrip that could only be used at the company store. They controlled the churches, the schools, every institution. And strikes and resistance were met with being thrown out of your house, violence, strike-breaking scabs, and confrontations with the police and security companies and state militias doing the bidding of the mine owners. Now, to counter these tactics, Mother Jones got a little creative. She organized women's brigades of wives, sisters, mothers of the miners, and together, carrying mops and brooms and banging on pans, they would march to the mine entrance and put themselves between the striking miners and the private security guards. Also, if one of the striking miners was beginning to back out from the strike, she was known to take the Mother's Brigade to his house, surround it, and offer him an apron if he wasn't willing to be part of the strike and do the work of a man. She also organized mutual aid groups among the women to provide help to the families of the strikers. And in her speeches to minor rallies, she was known to challenge them, saying, "If you will not fight, I will fight alone, but I will fight." Mother Jones was arrested and jailed many times. At one trial in West Virginia, the district attorney pointed to her and declared, "There sits the most dangerous woman in America." Now, while she's most often associated with organizing mine workers, during the 1900s, she also supported copper miners in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, helped organize Mexican miners in Arizona, campaigned for Eugene Debs and the Socialist Party, supported the shirtwaist workers in Philadelphia and New York, bottle washers in Milwaukee, and even came to Bloomington, Illinois to support the streetcar workers. In 1903, she took up the plight of children working in the mills and mines. In July of that year, she organized the Children's Crusade and led a group of 100 children who worked in the mills and mines on a march from Pennsylvania to Long Island to President Teddy Roosevelt's summer home. Over 110 miles in 2 weeks. Their effort created a national outcry about the bad enforcement of child labor. And eventually, a couple decades later, led to new enforcement and laws. Along the way, Mother Jones met and became friends with Upton Sinclair. He said, Mother Jones was forged by famine, plague, and fire, and was fearless and unwavering in her support of the working class. During the 1980s and 1920s and into her 80s, she continued to organize and be a hellraiser. But her health was failing, and she went to live with friends in Maryland. In her last year, she worked on writing an autobiography and finally died on November 30th, 1930, at the age of 93. At her request, she was buried in a mine worker-owned cemetery in Mount Olive, Illinois. That cemetery was established after a mine disaster during a strike, when the local government and the churches all refused for the miners to be buried in their cemetery. The miners created and erected a monument to her at her gravesite. In 1936, when the monument was unveiled, 50,000 miners and their families attended the ceremony. Can you imagine that, in that year, what it took for that many people to come to Mount Olive, if you've ever been to Mount Olive? The cemetery is still there, and there is a museum to Mother Jones in the City Hall. I don't know if you've ever stopped there, but I used to drive 55 between East St. Louis and Bloomington all the time, and I always stopped, and it's absolutely amazing. If you haven't been there, I urge you to go, because it will really lift your spirit. So Mother Jones, another true American hero.
Thank you, Steve. And now our last presenter, Jen, will come and talk to us about the Flint Auto Workers strike.
I so appreciate the opportunity to contribute today to our exploration of honest history and particularly women's labor. I lived and worked in Flint, Michigan for 9 years. Those years included the Flint water crisis. My career history has been a movement history, so I've learned about and continued the fight for civil rights throughout my career. It's the common thread, and Michigan, and Flint in particular, was the place that taught me the most about honest history and our desperate need for the continuing civil rights movements, especially around labor and economic justice. So I am profiling today Janora Johnson Dollinger. Much of this information is taken from my friend and librarian Liz Voda on the UM Flint Library website. Svoboda writes, most Flint residents know the story of the 1936 to 37 sit-down strike, an occupation protest of working conditions and pay at General Motors plants, specifically Chevy in the Hole. What many people do not know, however, is how Genora, Johnson, Dollinger, and the Emergency Brigade, an armed all-female force, contributed to organized labor's eventual victory and the creation of the United Auto Workers. Now, you all, non-Flint people, what you need to know about the 1936 and 1937 sit-down strike is this. It lasted 44 days in the dead of winter between December 30th of 1936 to February 11th of 1937. It was led by the United Automobile Workers. The workers successfully occupied the General Motors plants in Flint, Michigan. They had occupied one plant earlier in Detroit, and now we were moving to Flint because this was the central location of operations. The strike was a watershed moment. It was organized. Instead of walking out, which left them vulnerable to them bringing in replacement workers, employees remained inside the factories. The Battle of Running Bulls, which I'll talk about, happened on January 11th, and it was a significant turning point. This was not gentle protests. Authorities were violent. Police and company guards attempted to cut off food supplies. Strikers fought back. Genora was a major part of the strike, and that battle in particular, and the labor movement throughout her life. Genora Johnson Dollinger was born in 1913 and raised in Flint by a well-to-do family. Her father owned a photography business and several rental properties. She attended Flint Central High School, and she met her first husband, Kermit Johnson, there, a factory worker at GM, and she was 16 years old. Kermit and his father often discussed socialism and labor rights with Genora. And she was a privileged person, but she became involved with politics and labor organizing. Significant to her story also is illness. While in treatment in Hurley Hospital for tuberculosis, Genora read voraciously on the topic of labor rights, socialism, and communism. Kermit and Genora established the Socialist Party of Flint. So she was part of this movement to begin with. She was part of the central leaders of the sit-down strike itself. It's just she's often neglected in the narratives about the history. Genora helped to print labor newspapers published by the striking workers. She visited wives to reassure them and gain their support, and she regularly spoke in public. She also organized Flint's youth into the Youth Socialist Party, and they knocked on doors drumming up support for the strikers. The Emergency Brigade in particular was established on the night of the Battle of the Running Bulls. It was a violent clash with city police and General Motors hired goons. Genora ended the battle by using a rudimentary PA system to call on the women in the crowd to come down to the fray and defend their boyfriends, husbands, and brothers. There is some oral history recorded of Genora's perspective. In her own words, she says, "And so anyway, the battle raged. It never dawned on me to speak. In the first place, this was primarily a man's operation, and I was down there to help out. Although I never thought too much about men and women when we were right there in the heart of the battle, come to think about it. But it never dawned on me. I'd never made any kind of public speech or a microphone until Victor came back and told us that the battery on the sound truck was running down and we couldn't get our message across much longer to the crowds that had gathered at both ends of the battle area. He said, well, we may have lost the battle. The war is not lost, but we have lost the battle. And I said to him, well, Victor, why don't I talk to them over the loudspeaker? Well, we've got nothing to lose. He had no great confidence this would help. Men really didn't feel that women could do too much, although we were good and wonderful women for wanting to help them. That's when I got to take the mic. And again, circumstances, you lose yourself, you go beyond yourself and think of the cause. I was able to make my voice really ring out on that night because I knew the battery was going down and we had only a few minutes left. That's when I appealed to the women of Flint. I bypassed everybody else then and went to the women and told them what was happening. That's when I said, there are women down here, the mothers of children, and I beg of you to come down here and stand with your husbands, your loved ones, your brothers, your sweethearts. And when I made that appeal, it was a strange thing. It was dark too, but I could almost hear a hush. There was a general buzzing of the growing crowd at both ends. A hush came over the crowd the minute a woman's voice came over the mic. It was startling. All night long, they hadn't realized there was even a woman down there. She keeps using battle. This was a battle. The thing that was happening to their husbands and their brothers and their sweethearts was they were putting tear gas into the building where they were occupied. Then I saw, I don't know, there were car lights or whatever it was in this darkness that we could see action going on. Probably, maybe they were factory lights or something, police lights. But then I saw the first woman struggling, and I noticed when she started to break through and come down that a cop grabbed her coat. And this was in freezing weather. There were icy pavements and everything was frozen, and she just kept on coming. And as soon as that happened, other women broke through, and then we had a situation where the cops didn't want to fire into the backs of women. When the women did that, the men came naturally, and that was the end of the battle. She organized those women. She armed them to continue to serve the striking workers as human shield. They broke all the windows out so the gas could escape. She was the organizer of then the emergency brigade that followed. There was a women's auxiliary whose duties included cooking and delivering meals, but the emergency brigade designated itself as an organization of women uninterested in domestic responsibilities. The women of the EB carried bats, cudgels, chains, and whips under long winter coats. They wore matching red berets and armbands to stand out in crowds and promote solidarity. The work of the EB was chronicled in the 1978 documentary With Babies and Banners. It's pretty cool. After the sit-down strike, Genora married her second husband and continued her work to organize the unemployed in Flint to protest the horrid living conditions in the city's slums and Hoovervilles. She eventually moved to Detroit to find employment because she was blacklisted by most other factories in Flint. In 1945, in fact, men broke into her Detroit home at night and severely beat her with lead pipes because of her organizing activities. It was later revealed that the mafia, hired by corporate leaders, was responsible. The attack did not deter her. She continued her organizing work. She ran for the U.S. Senate in 1948, for the U.S. House of Representatives in 1950, as a candidate for the Socialist Worker Party. Her fight for equality continued with the civil rights and women's liberation movements of the 60s and 70s, being active with chapters of the NAACP, ACLU, and the National Organization of Women. She passed away at the age of 82 in 1995. We started this morning's worship with a strong, I think, theological stance that human beings deserve compensation and human flourishing, bread and roses, subsistence but also well-being. And Emma Goldman brought joy and happiness into the movement. Love must trump profit. My own labor history in Michigan is complicated. I'd invite you to ask me about it sometime. I did have the opportunity to be interviewed last year through the University of Michigan Flint Inclusive History Project. So it's interesting organizing in Michigan. Genora devoted over 6 active decades of her life on behalf of labor, civil liberties, civil rights, women's equality, opposition to the Vietnam War, and for the betterment of all humankind. And she did so, as all these activists have, by putting bodies on the line, facing violence, facing prison. No one gave these women anything. They took it. These are the true American heroes.
Now it's time for our postlude, and we would like congregational participation. So the words should be up on the screen. Wait, we're waiting. Well, yeah, most people know it, but the voices are a little different. We'll get ready. But we're going to sing We Shall Overcome. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. I'm sorry.
There won't be that either.
I'm thinking of overcoming, but for now we won't be moved.
Bill, if you can't find it, it'll be really easy for the congregation. It's just that line, we should not be moved. Don't worry about it.
We stand for love and justice. We shall not be moved. We stand for love and justice. We shall not be moved, just like a tree standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We're standing here together. We shall not be moved. We're standing here together. By the water, we shall not be moved. We love Mother Earth, we shall not be moved. We love Mother Earth, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We will help with healing, we shall not be moved. We will help with healing, we shall not be moved, just like a tree. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree standing by the water. We shall not be moved. Everybody. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree standing by the water. We shall not be moved.
Well, now we're coming to the end, folks. So it's time to thank everyone who made this service possible, which includes everyone here and on Zoom. Thanks to today's speakers, Janet, Steve, Jen, and me. Thanks to Elana for telling us more. Thanks to Elana for telling us more about Gaia House. Thanks to Elana and the choir for their music. Thanks to Bill as AV host. Thanks to Alex and Charles for greeting. And thanks for me for facilitating. We would like to take a quick moment before the benediction to ask people to please put hymnals back on the chair when you are leaving, and also please take any cups, papers, etc. with you. Thank you. Today's benediction acts as a closing for our 3 services on honest history. So please rise as you are willing and able for our benediction, which is an adaptation from History's Road by Clyde Grubbs and Marjorie Bowens Wheatley. The road of history is long, full of both hope and disappointment. In times past, there have been wars, violence, exploitation, hunger, homelessness, and destruction of this earth. Who are the people of both yesterday and today who inspire you? They may be well known or known only to you, offering personal inspiration, courage, and hope. May they join a great cloud of witnesses to a new way of life, the way of peace and justice, the way of justice lived according to the way of peace, the beloved community. So may it be. Go in peace with love for justice.